Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. We had started doing Bacon's essay on simulation and dissimulation, and if you remember from what I said in the last lecture, we're going to split this into two lectures. So just to recap a little of what we did in the last lecture, Bacon has explained what he means by simulation and dissimulation and why it is necessary on certain occasions to simulate and dissimulate. So we'll carry on from where we left off. The last few slides that we watched in the previous lecture gave us the 3 degrees, and Bacon emphasized the fact that 1 degree is that of people who are reserved, who keep their opinions to themselves and do not like sharing information or sharing their thoughts and ideas. And the third is that of people who pretend to be what they are not. Okay, so the 3 degrees that Bacon is talking about, the first comprises of closeness, reservation and secrecy. This comprises of people who don't like sharing their ideas, who do not want to socialize a lot, who are generally reserved, and people who are secretive in nature. The second category, which he considers to be a negative category, is that of dissimulation, and the third category that he talks about and which he says is positive is simulation. So let's see what else Bacon has in store for us. Now, he's going to take secrecy, closeness, reservation, dissimulation, simulation one by one and explain to you what he means by these terms and where these are necessary or required in our life. So he takes the first and he says the first of these, secrecy, it is indeed the virtue of a confessor, and assuredly the secret man heareth many confessions. Now here you have to remember that Bacon was also a theologian. He was concerned with the affairs of the church, and as such he had a lot of knowledge about the church. So when he talks about confession, he is talking definitely about the Roman Catholic concept of confessing your sins, receiving penance, and after doing that penance, achieving salvation and redemption. So I need you to keep these ideas in mind when you are reading anything related to confession. It is confession of the sin, the giving out of the penance by the confessor, the doing of the penance, whether it is a fine or it is recitation or it is some other good work that the priest gives out to the confessor, and the achieving of the ultimate redemption and salvation based on this penance. So he says that the first degree that Bacon talks about is secrecy, and he says secrecy is very good and it's a virtue of a confessor. And he says the secret man heareth many confessions. Now the concept of the confession or the confession box is that the sinner relates his sin, is told to do penance, but that information is not used by the priest for any other purpose, for any other motive, save the salvation of the man's soul. This is one of the basic principles of the confession box. Murderers have confessed, people have confessed to plots that they had hatched. Anything and everything can be confessed, but that information must not be used for any other purpose except that of the man's soul being saved, being redeemed. So when he says that secrecy is the virtue of a confessor, the priest must know how to keep secret. If the priest goes and tells people, this is what so and so has done, then the entire concept of confession, it falls apart. There can be no confession, there can be no penance, and therefore there can be no redemption. So it is essential that the priest know how to keep secrets. All right? Remember, point number one, secrecy. And when people come to know that the priest can keep secrets, many people will go to confess their sins, because the one thing that we fear most in confessing our sins and our wrongdoings is the fear of our story being spread in the community. So since it stays with the priest and does not go any further, it achieves its purpose. So Bacon says that the secret man heareth many confessions. The man, the priest who knows how to keep secrets, will definitely be hearing many sinners coming and confessing their sins. For who will open himself to a blab or a babbler? Now here he's providing a kind of a tongue twister when he brings in the blab and the babbler together. And he says, if a man be thought secret, it inviteth discovery, as the more close air sucketh in the more open, and as in confession the revealing is not for worldly use. So this we've already done. And when he says, who will open himself to a blab or a babbler? If your friend, for example, knows that you are very fond of talking, or as he says, of blabbing, then nobody is going to tell you a secret, because then it will not stay a secret. It will go out into the open. It will become a part of gossip. The difference between a sin being confessed or a confession being made and gossip is the number of people who hear it and the number of people who relate it again and again. So the principle of the confession box is that the priest will listen to the confession, will give out penance, and will not spread the story in the community. All right? So Bacon says nobody is going to confess to a blab or a babbler. If it is known that the priest cannot keep a secret, that priest will not receive any sinners. And the principle here is that if these sinners do not confess their sins, how are they to be redeemed? How are their souls to be saved? And the saving of the souls is compulsory from the point of view of Roman Catholicism. So he says it's not easy to keep a secret, even for a priest. The reason being, if somebody finds out that you have a secret, they will want to know it. As he says, if a man be thought secret, it inviteth discovery. What is there on the surface, you're not bothered about. Whatever is hidden, you want to know about. I'll give you an example, all right? Supposing you are told by your teacher, by your parent, you must not do this. It's not good for you. How many of you, I ask you, how many of you will obey the teacher or the parent? More than 90% of all of you present here will immediately go and do this. It's human nature. It's not something that we need to be ashamed of or something that we need to justify. It's human nature. When we are forbidden from doing something, we automatically want to go and do it. So, when you realize that a man has secrets, you cultivate that person's friendship because you want to know those secrets. Curiosity is an innate feature of human beings. We're curious, we ask questions. Somebody says, I can't tell you this, we want to know it. It's something that becomes imperative for us to know. So that's part of human nature. It's not something that we can change. So the point of bringing this example here is that Bacon says, close air sucketh in the more open air. Air that is stale is close air. If in a room the air becomes stale, you open the door or the window a tiny chink and fresh air will be sucked in. Have you ever noticed that? The moment you open up a tiny crack, fresh air will come in. So the moment that a single individual knows that the priest has heard confessions, the curious human being will want to know the identity of the sinner, the nature of the sin committed, and all the other gory details. So it takes a very strong man to keep a secret. So keeping, maintaining of secrets is an essential part of the entire confession, penance, redemption process. Secrecy is essential for the priest. But for the ease of a man's heart, so secret men come to the knowledge of many things in that kind. Priests hear a lot. They hear all kinds of people coming in and telling about sins that they have committed, sins that they thought they would commit, sins that they want to commit, sins that even sometimes they dreamt they had committed. And so strong is the guilt that even that dream must be confessed. So as Bacon says, secret men come to the knowledge of many things in that kind, while men rather discharge their minds than impart their minds. Very important point, very, very important point. He says the objective of a confession box is that the sinner will share his sin with the priest and start on the process of redemption. Step onto the path of redemption. But what happens here is that people do not just share, as Bacon is fond of saying, people discharge their minds. Remember what I told you about sins not only of commission but also of omission? Something that you forgot to do, something that you thought you were going to commit, something even that you dreamt you were committing. Now those do not fall into the category of sins. But people still go ahead and confess it. And then they'll say, Father, what should I do? Which is the proper procedure once the sin has been confessed. Those of you who are familiar with the way this entire process of confession works will know that once the sinner has confessed his sin, his request is to be told what kind of penance he must do. What is the penalty? What must he do to wash away that sin, to absolve himself of all sin? So they do not just tell the one sin that has been committed, but they will also go and tell all the other things that they thought or that they wanted to do or that they dreamt they were doing. So it takes a very strong person to take in a secret, hear a secret, and then keep it a secret. In short, Bacon says, mysteries are due to secrecy. Now I want you to think about this line. Mysteries are due to secrecy. What makes a mystery? Something that is hidden, something that is not revealed to you. Those of you who read mystery novels, those of you who read suspense novels will be familiar with this. What creates suspense, what creates mystery is the hidden. What is obvious never creates a mystery. It's there. You don't have to find out anything. You don't need to go looking for anything. You only need to go searching when something is hidden from you. When everything is told to you, there's nothing to find out. So Bacon says mysteries are due to secrecy. Remember that. You'll be able to use this quote one day. And then he gives in a slightly different idea. And he says, like truth, nakedness is uncomely, as well in mind as body. Now he gives you the gist of whatever he has said before. And he says, the naked truth, nobody wants to know that. But what is hidden, everyone wants to find out. Everyone wants to discover something. If you give everything to your audience, to your readers, what will they do? And you see, that is exactly what Bacon is doing through his writing. He's not giving us details. He gives us one sentence and leaves it to us to find out the rest. So he gives very short, very pithy sentences, statements. And I, being your teacher, spend hours trying to explain to you what exactly it is that Bacon is trying to say, because Bacon has not revealed everything. He's just given us short, concise statements, and it is up to find out the exact meaning. So he says nakedness is ugly. You need to have mystery. And nakedness he's talking not just in the physical sense, not in the sense of wearing no clothes, but in the sense of everything being revealed from your mind. So nakedness in mind as in body is uncomely. It's not beautiful. Beauty lies in mystery. Beauty lies in secrecy. All right? That's another point that I need you to remember. And it addeth no small reverence to men's manners and actions, if they be not altogether open. So, nakedness does not add to your qualification. If you're wearing no clothes, no one is going to consider you respectable or worth respecting. No one is going to take you seriously. They're going to say, oh, he's not wearing any clothes. What does he know about the world? So any point that you try to make is going to be laughed away, is going to be laughed at and laughed out. No one is going to take you seriously. No one is going to believe you if you say something and you are as naked as the day you were born. If you're wearing some clothes and not totally covered, people will hear you. But if you're wearing no clothes, believe me, no one is going to take you seriously. So you don't look polite, you don't look dignified when you're not wearing any clothes. And he says this nakedness applies not only to the body, it also applies to the mind. So when you reveal everything and you do not conceal any part of your personality, you lose your charm for other people. You need to keep a part of yourself secret so that people will have that curiosity, that desire to explore, to discover some aspect of your personality. As for talkers and futile persons, Bacon says they are commonly vain and credulous withal. For he that talketh what he knoweth will also talk what he knoweth not. So when he says talkers are futile persons, he says they're also vain and credulous. Not just vain, but credulous also, gullible. They are easy to fool because they will believe whatever you tell them. So talkers, he says, those who talk a lot are vain people. They're fond of the sound of their own voice. So those of you who are fond of talking, remember, you're also guilty of being vain according to Bacon's philosophy. So he says talkers and futile persons, he lumps them all together, giving you the impression that talkers are also futile because they do not make an impact. It's only those who think who make an impact. Those who are talking all the time, blah, 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 nobody takes them seriously. Nobody pays any attention to what they're saying. And they're not only vain, they're also credulous, they're also gullible. Whatever you tell them, they'll say, oh, let me tell this to so-and-so. And without pausing to think of whether it can be possible, he will go and blab the whole thing to another individual. So these people are not to be taken seriously because they're exposing everything and they're not keeping anything that will attract people to their personality. So talkers are vain, they are credulous. The reason being, he that talketh what he knoweth will also talk what he knoweth not. Food for thought. A person who is fond of talking will talk not only about what he knows, but also what he knows not. This again bears thinking. People who are fond of the sound of their own voice do not care whether what they are saying is true, false, it has a positive outcome or a negative one. They're not bothered, they're not concerned. All they want to hear is the sound of their own voice. And regarding such persons, Bacon says that a man who talks about what he does know about will also talk about something that he has no idea of. And you see people like this around you. People who are fond of talking will interrupt a person who is speaking and say, let me give you my opinion, or I know what this is. Now, that sort of a person becomes obnoxious because he does not know anything, but he thinks he knows everything. And such a person is vain, is gullible, is totally selfish and self-centered, has a huge ego problem. All right? Let's see what more Bacon talks about. Therefore set it down, and set it down means therefore remember that an habit of secrecy is both politic and moral. And in this part it is good that a man's face give his tongue leave to speak. Now here he inserts a little bit of irony for those who are very fond of the sound of their own voice. So he says, remember that the habit of secrecy is not only useful, it's also good. So the moral, the good, is from the aspect of religion. No religion in the world advocates talking without purpose, talking without pause, talking without making any sense. The majority of religions advise, advocate silence and thinking. And a man who is thinking cannot be talking. You can't do these two things together. You can either think or you can talk. You can't do both things together. So according to him, this habit of secrecy is not only an intelligent thing, a political thing, a diplomatic thing, but it's also moral. You're also following the dictates of your religion when you maintain secrecy or when you keep silence. And he says, because some people's faces are so special for them that they do not think of what they are going to talk about. There are some people who consider that if they speak, they will reveal themselves, which they do, and so those people are afraid of speaking. So on the one hand, you have one group of people who are talking all the time. On the other hand, it is as if it is almost a crime to talk. So you have two categories of people, one who are blabbing all the time, the other group comprises of people who do not speak at all. For the discovery of a man's self by the tracts of his countenance is a great weakness and betraying, by how much it is many times more marked and believed than a man's words. So you see how Bacon slides from one idea to another. He talks about the face and then he talks about appearance. So he talks about the face and he talks about the appearance, and when he talks about appearance he says that for some people facial expressions are a very strong mirror into your inner nature, your temperament. And there are many people who will look at the face and tell you what a certain individual is like. They look at a face and say, I know what this man is like. And they will not wait to hear what the man has to say, how he's going to speak, whether his arguments are convincing or not. They'll take one look at the face, at the countenance, as Bacon calls it, and make up their minds. So that's one category of people who go by appearances, who do not wait for the inner nature to be revealed. All that they consider enough is the superficial self, the appearance. It could be the dress, it could be the face, it could be whatever strikes the visual sense first. Okay, so that's Bacon's point of view, that people are more impressed by appearances than by the true nature or temperament of the human being. All right, so this was the first category, secrecy, reservation, closeness. He comes to the second category, and that is dissimulation, and he says, it followeth many times upon secrecy. One of the reasons why people dissimulate or dissemble is secrecy, so that he that will be secret must be a dissembler in some degree. Now, when you think about this statement, you realize how deep a study Bacon has made of this topic, where he says that many of the people who dissemble, who pretend, who lie because they have something to hide, lie because they have secrets. Now the two are interdependent. On the one hand, he says a man who can keep a secret is a wonderful person, would be a wonderful churchman, priest. And on the other hand, he says that if you keep something secret, then you also have to pretend something else. So a person who has a secret cannot reveal the secret, but he can reveal other things. And that is where dissimulation comes in. That you have a secret, you cannot reveal that secret, so you go and tell people something very different, something which is not true. It's a vicious circle. So what you're doing is you're keeping one individual's secret and you are lying. You're telling an untruth. What you're saying is a falsehood. So it's something that is a little confusing, but Bacon tries to clarify different aspects of simulation and dissimulation by giving many different examples. So he says, he that will be secret must be a dissembler in some degree. Whoever wants to keep a secret will also need to tell lies, will also need to pretend, will also need to be artificial at times. For men are too cunning to suffer a man to keep an indifferent carriage between both and to be secret without swaying the balance on either side. Okay. Now, if you take this out of the context of priesthood and the confession box, what you have is a man who has a secret and who does not want to reveal that secret. It might be his own secret, it might be a friend's secret. Whatever, he does not want to reveal the secret. It's a very difficult thing to keep, especially if someone finds out that you have a secret. then that individual will do his utmost to make you reveal that secret. So without swaying the balance on either side, he's going to make sure that you reveal the secret somehow. Maybe he will say, oh, I know the secret already. Maybe he'll say, you know, you don't trust me. I can keep secrets also. And so because you are friends, you're so moved by this that you say, all right, here is the secret. Because you cannot lie, because you cannot tell a falsehood. So you go and you reveal that secret. But that secret may not have been yours to keep. And so it's very difficult to maintain the balance of friendship and keeping secrets. It's very difficult. You can either keep secrets or you can keep your friends. If you keep your friends, then you cannot reveal their secrets. And if you reveal secrets, then you cannot keep your friends. Now these are points that need thinking about, and that is why Bacon is providing so much detail, and he's going into it again and again and yet again. So, they will so beset a man with questions and draw him on and pick it out of him that without an absurd silence he must show an information one way. So this is what we've already gone through, and that is they blackmail the individual, they threaten the individual, they plead with the man, please tell me, I swear upon God, I will not tell anyone. Or they could say, you don't trust me, I'm not your friend, am I? You don't even trust me with one itsy bitsy secret. So these are the different ways in which you can get an individual to reveal his secret. So, and if he does not, then they will assume things by his silence. It's like, let me give you an example. It's like journalists. Something happens, something very important happens, and they go and they start taking interviews. What do you think of this situation? Now, the individual they're asking is not allowed to reveal that secret. So he says nothing. And then another reporter or a journalist would thrust the mic into his face and say, please give us your comments. And the individual will say, no comment. So what the journalist will do is quickly go and write in the paper, so and so did not, when asked to comment, so and so did not comment. So even that no comment is quoted. So what do you do? What is an individual to do? How do you deal with such a situation? You've been entrusted with a secret and you're being asked to reveal it. You're being asked, you're being begged, pleaded, threatened, warned. You're being forced to reveal that secret. And so you go ahead and do it. And that's the end of your friendship. That's the last time that anyone will trust you, because the moment it gets out that you have shared that secret with somebody else, people will say, he cannot be trusted. Don't tell him anything, because the moment you turn your back, he will go and reveal it. And it will become material for gossip. So it's a very tricky balance that has to be maintained between keeping trust, keeping friendships, and keeping secrets. So, as for equivocations or oracular speeches, they cannot hold out long. So when you're making a speech, you are bound to reveal something of yourself, and you can't really keep secrets when you're making speeches to a community, a gathering, or you're making a speech where you're addressing a huge number of people. You cannot hold out on such an occasion. So that no man can be secret except he give himself a little scope of dissimulation, which is, as it were, but the skirts or train of secrecy. So anyone who wants to keep secrets will have to pretend, will have to tell a few lies in order to maintain that secret, in order to keep that secret. And that brings us to the third degree, and that is simulation. And he says that simulation is false profession, and I hold that more culpable and less politic, except be it in great and rare matters. So simulation, Bacon does not allow unless the matter is of grave importance, unless it is in national interest, that you pretend. He says, I do not like people who simulate. And therefore, a general custom of simulation is a vice, using either of a natural falseness or fearfulness, or of a mind that hath some main faults, which because a man must needs disguise, it maketh him practice simulation in other things, lest his hand should be out of use. So he presents a slightly different idea, and he says that the general custom of simulation, or what is habitual, is a vice. It's not a virtue, it's a vice. And this means that you pretend to be happy when you're not, and afraid when you're not. Or of a mind that hath some main faults, which because a man must needs disguise. Now because you want to hide something, you need to pretend to be what you are not. And this is where simulation comes in. If you have to keep a secret, then you will have to tell lies. Otherwise, people are going to wrangle that secret out of you. Somehow or the other, casual it out of you, force it out of you. The great advantages of simulation and dissimulation, and now Bacon comes to what good can come out of simulation and dissimulation. And again, it's three in nature. You will by now have noticed that Bacon is very fond of the three. If he has advantages, there are three. If there are disadvantages, there are three. If there are categories, there are three. If there are degrees, there are three. So first, to lay asleep opposition and to surprise. The first advantage is that you put all opposition to sleep. And that is one advantage. And then you can also surprise people. So where a man's intentions are published, it is an alarm to call up all that are against them. So the moment you find out somebody's intentions, it's like you're trumpeting, you're playing something, let's say in a masjid on a loudspeaker. That's an invitation for people who are against them to come and hit, to come and strike, to come and find faults. So one of the greatest advantages of simulation and dissimulation is that you put all opposition to sleep. When you are pretending, people do not know what you actually are or who you actually are, then they have nothing to oppose you with, nothing to oppose you in. So the second advantage is to reserve to a man's self a fair retreat. You can hide, you can draw back. For if a man engage himself by a manifest declaration, he must go through or take a fall. Once you've declared something, let me tell you, you have to see it through. You cannot afford to leave it halfway and then have people saying, oh, he wanted to do so much and he couldn't really do it. So either you go through with it, or you accept defeat, you admit defeat. The third advantage is that when you keep a secret, or when you simulate and dissimulate, you can discover the mind of another. You're not revealing anything of yourself, but you will get ideas from the other person. For to him that opens himself, men will hardly show themselves adverse. If you show that you're honest, that you're truthful, that you have nothing to hide, people will say, oh, we're not bothered with you. You are taken at your word. But somebody who tries to keep a secret, people will want to know what the secret is and why he or she is not willing to reveal it. And therefore it is a good shrewd proverb of the Spaniard, tell a lie and find a truth. So you need to tell a lie in order to discover the truth. If you don't tell lies, if you don't pretend that I don't know anything, you will not find out anything. If you say, oh, I know everything, no one will tell you anything. And so you will remain ignorant. But if you say, I don't know anything, people out of compassion will tell you things. So if there were no way of discovery but by simulation, there'll be also 3 disadvantages to set it even. So again, the number 3. 3 advantages and now 3 disadvantages. The first, that simulation and dissimulation commonly carry with them a show of fearfulness. He who pretends is afraid. And when you are afraid, you lose your dignity. As he says, it doth spoil the feathers of round flying up to the mark. You know, an arrow has feathers at the back. If you pretend, then your arrows will be spoiled. So then you will not be able to hit the mark. You will not be able to get the maximum benefit. The second is that it puzzleth and perplexeth the conceits of many that perhaps would otherwise cooperate with him. So when you tell lies, when you pretend, you confuse other people. And these same people may want to help you. But if you pretend to them, if you tell lies to them, they will not be able to help you. And that's another big disadvantage. And so a man is alone. When there are no people to help you, nobody to advise you, you will be on your own. The third and greatest disadvantage is that it depriveth a man of one of the most principal instruments for action, which is trust and belief. So after going around everything, we come back to trust and belief. The greatest disadvantage, according to Francis Bacon, is that once you tell a lie, once you pretend to be what you are not, people will stop trusting you. People will stop believing in you. They might have believed in you for years, and then one lie is discovered, and those 100 years of honesty and truthfulness and integrity will be washed away. The best composition and temperature, therefore, is to have openness in fame and opinion. And I want you to note these words particularly. This is one of those quotations that you are going to come across again and again. The best composition and temperature is to have openness in fame and opinion, secrecy in habit, dissimulation in seasonable use, and a power to feign if there be no remedy. So Bacon leaves the best for the last, and he says that the best composition and temperature is to have all of these in small quantities. Openness and fame and opinion. Be very candid, be honest, be frank about what you think. Secrecy in habit, and yet make secrecy a habit. So what he's telling you here are 2 contradictory things, but you need to have both of them in your nature, in your temperament, if you're going to be a successful person. So secrecy in habit, dissimulation and seasonable use. Seasonable use, not to dissemble to the extent where people start saying, oh, he's a liar. Don't believe him. He never tells you the truth. So use dissimulation in small quantities. Okay? Seasonable use. And a power to feign if there be no remedy. And if all else fails, you should be able to pretend maybe that you know nothing. So the power to feign if there be no remedy. All these you need to have in your temperament. Openness and fame and opinion, secrecy in habit, dissimulation and seasonable use, and a power to feign if there be no remedy. If all else fails, you need to be able to lie yourself out of whatever tricky situation you've gotten into. So this might come as a surprise, particularly for readers and students who have formed the opinion that Bacon is all for honesty and truthfulness and integrity. He is also a man of the world, and as a man of the world, he gives you worldly advice. He gives you advice that will ensure that you become a successful person. So he says, openness and fame in opinion, secrecy in habit, dissimulation and seasonable use, and a power to feign if there be no remedy. All of these you must have in small quantities. All of these you need if you are going to be a successful person. So, to very quickly go through the points that Bacon has made in this half of the essay. If you remember, he describes the different degrees of simulation and dissimulation after defining and describing what is simulation and what is dissimulation, and then he goes on to give you positions and conditions under which secrecy is essential, and he gives you the example of the churchman or the priest who listens to confessions, and Bacon says that for a person who hears confessions, it is very, very important that he keeps secrets, because the moment it is known that sinners are coming to confess their sins so that they may be absolved of all sins and their souls be redeemed and saved, people want to find out. Human nature is such that it is curious, it wants to know things, and therefore people will want to get that secret out, because secrets are very attractive. Secrets are what make mysteries. And Bacon also says that a person who reveals everything to his hearers, his listeners, his community, is not an attractive person, and such a person is known as a talker. And talkers, he says, are futile personalities, because they not only talk about things that they know about, they also have a tendency to talk about things that they know nothing about. And as such, a talker becomes a definite person who is to be avoided. And then he takes us on to the advantages and the disadvantages, and he wraps it up by saying that the greatest disadvantage is that people will stop trusting you. So if you want to keep the faith and trust of those around you, then you must make sure that your personality is well-rounded. And the secret for that is that you must be open in fame and opinion. You must be very frank and forthright. You must develop secrecy as a habit. The two might appear contradictory, but Bacon says it can be done. Dissimulation and seasonable use, where required, you should be able to pretend, you should be able to act a little, and the power to feign if there be no remedy. If you find yourself in a corner where it is very difficult for you to be able to present a positive image of yourself, then he says you must have the power to feign. It's not something that you're using all the time, but if you are cornered and there appears to be no other solution, then you have to be able to lie yourself out of the situation. But the last category, he says, is only if there is no other option available. The power to feign, remember, is if there be no remedy. If there is no other cure, no other way out, then you should be able to tell a few lies, to pretend something that you are not, or to pretend to be something that you cannot be. So the power to feign is only to be used if there is no remedy. Thank you for being such a patient class, and we'll discuss some more essays in the next lecture. Have a very good day, and Allah Hafiz.